Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Sacred and Profane podcast. I'm so excited that you're here. Oh my gosh, you guys, this energy is sublime. So I'm going to start by casting runes like we always do, and then I'm going to introduce our special guest. I've been hyping her up, so you know she's here. First is Kalnaz for fire. This is like the fire that's inside. You know what you know, and no one can tell you otherwise. It's divine fire. It's also like being divinely inspired by something. Then we have pure. I call this the magical cauldron, but the Norse thought of it as like a dice cup. So it's like a game of chance, but it's divination or luck. But this can also signify something happening in the right time, okay, depending on how other runes fall. And with Manaz here for manifestation and divine union, um, I love this for any episode of the Sacred and Profane podcast because that's just kind of how we roll around here. But this is giving like it's time for something. The time is right for something. Ooh and Sawula. Okay. Yes. So
Mm.
Sawula, like, oh my God. Yeah. I call it, it's like the sun, it's the chariot, it's a lightning bolt, it's the tower, but in the most delicious, juicy way. So I feel like these rooms all lead up to this, right? So this beautiful woman with me here today is Sharon Marie Scott. I'm super excited about this because Sharon is an erotic mystic, which, already like lights me up, like, yes, 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 yes. Um, an author and the architect of the pleasure renaissance. So, first of all, thank you for being on the Sacred and Profane podcast. Uh, Disclaimer for
So,
everyone who
hmm
Sharon's new.
so,
This is 18 and older only. So, this is where we say if you're not old enough to play, please go find somewhere else to listen today. And if you're not emotionally mature, unfortunately, this is also not for you. Okay, so you got to be 18, you got to be emotionally mature. Sharon, thank you
yeah,
for
we're not
being
playing
here.
around today.
No, there's no
we
games
are,
here. This is
we
all.
are playing around, and we're not playing around.
Yes, only in the most delicious way. So, um, the universe brought us together, but I'm at the pleasure renaissance. Okay, so you want to just drop us in there?
Yeah, the Pleasure Renaissance is a global movement that I am leading that is meant to restore eros and pleasure as the lens through which we live and thrive in our lives, rather than the current conditioned societal model of competition and survival. And it
Mm,
includes these pillars that the Pleasure Renaissance stands for, which are pleasure literacy, erotic alchemy, sensual
mm,
aliveness, regenerative community, and what I call myth making, which
mm,
is kind of like what is the legacy that we're going to leave behind. But I do think that the world is ready for the pendulum to swing back the other way, the way
mm,
that it's always meant to be, which is that we are meant to be gods at play in this
mm,
reality.
mm. So sublime. Yeah. So, man, there's so much in what you just shared. I'm going to start where you left us, which is we're meant to be gods at play here. And I love that. I may have shared with you when we first connected that I used to be really triggered when people would say life is play or life is a game. Because for me, as we were joking before, it was very serious stuff. You gotta take it seriously. But I since have discovered I absolutely am a creator goddess at play. And all there is for me to do is be. And in my being is creation for the sake of creation. Like that's just all there is, right? But it took years
Yeah.
to get to that. It took years. And so I love feeling into what you've created, what you've built that invites us into this really sacred truth as soon as possible. Like it doesn't have to take
Yes.
30 years. You can get this right now if you want this truth. It's available for you.
Yeah. And part of that framework comes from my background as a writer and creator in video games. And
Mm,
as you and I have spoken about in the preparation for this interview today, I, in my spiritual awakening, have experienced many lifetimes of memories of being
mm,
a sacred sexual oracle of one kind or another, or sexual high priestess
mhm,
in past lives. And so you know, it's a sacred journey that we're on, even in the struggle
Mm,
that we're having now, the
mm,
collective
mhm,
struggle. And it's
mhm,
time for us to reclaim that lineage of power and empowerment, and of, the reclamation of our bodies as
mm,
a divine tool, and the way that the divine
mm,
speaks through us through pleasure.
mm. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, mm, it's wild. I don't know that I've shared this vision with too many people that I'm going to share with you guys, but it's so right here. So this is like 20 years ago, like dating myself, but 20 years ago, I had this vision, and in the vision, I opened my eyes, and I'm standing outside of this big building, and I'm watching these huge stone walls fall down all four sides, and everybody's running out like, "Ah," and I'm like, oh my God. I literally say in the vision, oh my God, what is going on here? And then I hear God say, I'm doing this. And I stop for a moment, and I kind of go, okay, that was weird. But I reinsert myself into the vision. And sure enough, no, there's this big building. It's a church. And the walls are being pushed down and people are running out. And I'm like, but God, who is doing this? And God says, I'm doing this. And I looked again, and I could see the expression on people's faces. They were like running for freedom. They're running
Mm,
for freedom. And God said, it's time for my people to be free. This is 20 years ago. I was like 25 years
mm,
old. So I go to my mom, and I had been out of the church for a while, right? So those of you who listen, you already know Southern Pentecostal, all the things, pros and cons here. So I went to my mom, and I'm like, Mom, I had this vision. It was crazy. I think God is like done with church. I really got what I saw. Like, I think he's actually pushing people out of the four walls. I think he's pushing people to find him outside of these four walls. And she looked at me, she was like, what are you going to do? I said, well, I'm not going to go to church because he won't be there.
mm.
That's not where God is going to be. So I won't be going there. Right. And I know that's provocative, but it wouldn't be the Sacred and Profane podcast if I didn't say it. Like, say it the way that it really is out here. And so as you share what you're sharing, and I'm living the truth that you're sharing, that probably many of the listeners and viewers are, we see what we're calling the return of the divine feminine, but I'm affirming that 20 years ago, the Most High had already precipitated that, had already began to push people out. Those of you who were Christian and in your deconstruction era, like that, like it's on purpose. It's on purpose. You're calling it deconstruction because God pushed the walls of the church down and said, no, go find truth outside. And when you get outside, y'all know I'm a garden person. I'm always in the woods. Like even today in the rain, I was in the woods. When you get outside, who meets you is the God. Who meets you is the mother. When you get outside. So, also when you get outside, that line that you thought was uncomfortable begins to blur into something that becomes quite delightful really, really quickly. And we find ourselves back to the pleasure principle again, just by
Yeah,
going
and
outside.
actually, what you're talking about reminds me that, it's these cultural narratives, right? Like in the case of, you're talking about religion that has brought through these
Mhm.
really strong, very old cultural narratives around, like, spirituality and sexuality can't live in the same space,
Yep.
or pleasure is an indulgence or a reward, or that it has
Mm,
to be controlled or rationed or
mm,
something. And it's not just
mhm.
this, it's not just literally the life force that we're meant through which to live. And so,
Yes.
so my effort with the pleasure renaissance, starting with these conversation, is to change that cultural narrative, because over time those narratives, they get becoming so ingrained societally that we end up building like governmental
Mm,
structures and hierarchies
mm,
based on those false narratives. And so it's time, if these are the cultural operating systems that sort of in play. And
mhm.
so as we go to have more of this conversation, and people listen, not just with their minds, but with their bodies, and they can feel the
Yeah.
truth and resonance of what we're talking about, then that becomes the prominent cultural
Mm,
narrative, and the framework and
mm,
culture underneath that ends up shifting over time. And so, how quickly can we bring in this notion of pleasure as
mm.
praxis, pleasure as the way in which we're supposed to be operating in this reality. How quickly can we change that narrative in order to change the culture itself?
Oh, I have chills running through my body. That question itself is it's like a dream come true to have the question present itself, right?
Mm,
As well as like such a sacred and lofty challenge and goal to even begin to answer this question. And off top, I have two heads here. My adult, my goddess says, temple, just bring the temple back,
yeah.
which you and I shared this wonderful conversation. And then right there is my inner child who says, ooh, but first we have to play in the mud. But first, let's go
Yes.
outside and play in the dirt,
But
you
let
know?
me offer you this. The mud will come up anyway. So if you point your compass, if you point yourself to pleasure and to your aliveness, which is literally like the way as gods we're meant to operate, all of that
Yeah.
mud will come up anyway. So I talk about this process, this pleasure as a technology being the next evolution or even a transcendence of shadow work, because everybody's
Mm-hmm.
really into shadow work, and it was a really important phase for us to all learn about and go through. But
Mm-hmm.
shadow work will keep you in the loop of healing. It'll keep you in the loop of shadow work. And all shadow work
Mm-hmm.
really does, it's really more about a relief of suffering or to bring you
Yes.
to a sense of safety, which is not the
Yes.
same as feeling pleasure and aliveness. So I can't remember whether you used the word deconstruction or
Yes.
reconstruction. But if
Deconstruction.
it's deconstruction, that's actually sitting in that shadow work loop. And so
Yes.
I invite an expanded thought, which to those who are using this term deconstruction, that in fact, again, all of that deconstruction work will come up as long as they're pointed toward their aliveness, all of that stuff will come up. And when you're actually holding with, let's
Mm-hmm.
say, a higher, faster frequency, an expanded frequency of aliveness, the shadow work will get alchemized like crazy fast by
Mm-hmm.
comparison to the traditional shadow work loops of healing.
I love that. You're reminding me of this wonderful intersection that's possible when we play together in a group. Group play offers this opportunity to accelerate that transmutation. So you point to the shadow work loop. I'm reminded of this knowingness that healing is not our purpose. And I often share that with people like, you're not actually here to heal. It's a part of your journey. Like if you don't, there's going to be some obstruction to your expression, but that's not why you're here. And I have this very real experience as a shaman that people are quite addicted to healing.
Yeah.
Um, Very much one of the ways I put it is suffering is trendy, right? So how can you share how much you're suffering? One of the ways is to talk about how much you're healing, right? Because then we're always present to what's wrong with you, like what's the problem. So group play, and for me as a shaman, this comes up in the world of group ceremony. Uh, when we're able to get together as a group and share this intimate experience, the shift occurs very, very rapidly, as you're pointing to, right?
Yes.
Versus if I'm sitting on my own and I'm just not maybe even with a friend, right? Maybe not just on my own, but there's something that's possible when we can get a group involved. And that's what I'm present to in your sharing when we talk about accelerating this process that allows shadow work to naturally occur. Where I see this reliably, time and time and time and time again, is in group dynamics. It's one of the reasons I moved from one-on-one coaching to group coaching. I've had plenty of people over the past 10 years like, why don't you coach? Well, I do, but now I work with groups, and this is why. Because I could sit with somebody for 12 months and be like pulling teeth, right? And if you're a former client listening, you already know you gave me a run for my money. Um, but if I can put you with 8 to 10 other people then we can accomplish something in like literally a fraction of the time, and it's sustainable because now you have this community. You talked about regenerative community. You have this community that's naturally there, that's already authentically and vulnerably and intimately connected with you, that allows you to maintain this shift that you just experienced. So
It's
thank
funny
you
that you
for that
bring this up.
invitation.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring this up. I literally wrote an article this morning that will get published tomorrow on my Substack, and it's about it talks about this. It talks about the amplification and the potential of the group field, and how like
Yeah.
we borrow safety. We borrow from the group field in those moments when we don't have it all for ourselves. And
Mm,
then
mm.
like, and I'm assuming now in the context of your share, I realize you're not necessarily even meaning erotic group play spaces, but then we go to talk about that layer, and
Yes,
it's an it's
yes.
and it's synergistically more amplification than
It's
even just
wild.
the
Yes.
group field. So yeah, super big power move. I mean, you can see when you really start to understand, let's say the quantum physics of how this works,
Yes.
and those of us that are like kind of in the shamanic priestess lineages that can feel the amplification of the group field.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start to realize like what erotic energy can do for that. Like, I can see why this was so scary. I can see why, that society felt like whoever the power players were felt like this had to be stopped, that this
Contained.
had to
Correct.
be controlled. I can absolutely see why.
So, okay, so share. Never, it's never TMI on this podcast. That's why I created podcast. But I shared with you, like, so I have my sex positive community in New York. Shout out to all of you people, you're amazing. And one of the things I love is that group feel, and I've been a participant for over a decade now, right? And one of the ways I play is I sit in that space and I enjoy that space, right?
Yeah.
And I've had people
Yeah.
say, so how come we don't see you do this? Or how come we never see you over there? How come you don't go in that room? No, no, no. I'm great with all of it. But what I'm there for is exactly what you pointed to, that group field. And because
Yeah.
that's what I've been showing up for over a decade, I am extremely 100% clear why it was contained.
Yeah.
I
I keep getting
I
an
have
image of you. I'm getting an image of you with a straw. And you're like,
that's actually very accurate. Also, what I was like, look, they have I can go and I can be good for the whole year.
yeah,
There's so
totally.
much available. And then
Yeah.
when it's just a weekend, and when I go home, as you point to, the integration, right? Because just sitting in that space is doing things inside of me that I'm not present to until I leave that space, get on the plane, fly back home, and I sit and I go, ooh, and it's all the little popcorns popping off inside of me. And the particular experience that I enjoy includes art and music. So the entire experience is engaging all of my senses. Oh, and also delicious, yummy food, right? So the whole time it's just pleasure, 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 pleasure.
Yeah.
You would think pleasure overload, but no, there's no pleasure overload. It's always
Sensational
just right,
aliveness. Sensational
right? It's always
aliveness. That's
just
the
right,
third pillar. Yeah.
you know? And then, as you point to, things are just rearranged in that.
Yeah.
Now, real talk, what it took me to become someone that would allow myself into this space, allow myself to show up safely, allow myself to trust others. These are all conversations that we get to explore, right? Inside of this, the foundational conversation. And the reality is, this is such a powerful way to experience yourself as being alive. That it, for
Yeah.
me, it immediately became the marker. I'm back. So I was saying, so now you can't trick me with an idea of what alive is. Like, oh, try this job or try this drug or try this, relationship. No, I don't actually need any of that. there is an experience I can have of myself if I will choose it and allow it. That
Yeah, and I'll say too that pleasure can be used for the integration too. So like even after you get back home,
mm,
like you were mentioning, and maybe you feel fatigued or like something like drop, right? It
mm,
happens with
mm-hmm,
group medicine journeys. It happens in kink.
mm-hmm,
It
yep,
happens
yep,
in spiritual awakening and expansion. And
yes,
you can use like self pleasuring or pleasure or
yes,
sensual aliveness in order
yes,
to smooth out that integration phase as well.
yes,
So again, pleasure at every level is really the answer,
yes.
or aliveness at every level is the answer.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you. So, I want to touch just a little bit on the temple. So you and I share this conversation, and we have our own kind of doors or pathways into the temple. But once we get inside, we're both very clear about what's happening here. Um, I want you to share for our audience because we have a lot of temple lovers out here in this audience. We do. So bring us into the temple through your pathway, through your door. Like invite us in, please.
Yeah. My temple is about the temple of I, the temple of self. And it's really about recognizing that you are the creator of your reality, that everything in your reality is you pushed out and then reflected back. So, like, if you ever want anything to change in your outer reality, you turn inward in order to whatever loop is being left open or whatever energy leak is happening that's allowing that to embody itself in your outer reality is really about a journey within. And so it starts with that knowledge. And then as you step inside the temple, it's really about how much more deeply can I fall in love with myself? And how
Mm,
can I put that feeling, that self-love into practice? So within my temple, and there's but the underlying premise is self-worship
mm,
in every day. And obviously
yes,
there are like a weekly goddess night that I will teach
yes,
people how to do. I'll teach them, my version of different types of self-pleasuring practices, but that doesn't
mm,
it's not always like naked touching the body. It has to do with like, how are you
mhm,
having a meal? How are you engaging with your cup of
yes,
tea? Like
yes, yes.
the journey of turning every moment into a sacred sacrament is again like where I'm coming from. And we start
Mhm,
broad in all the ways that feel familiar, and then we start to expand. It's funny because it's both like a refinement, so it's a coming in, but by coming in, your somehow your perceptual experience becomes bigger by
mhm,
going more in a more refined way of showing up in full presence
yes,
and actively looking for the beauty and the pleasure in any given moment.
yes, yes. I love it. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I love that we're
What is
using
it?
similar, I love that us as spiritual lineage sisters, because you're not the first one that I've encountered who goes, "Oh, I remember you," essentially, right?
Yes,
And so it's
yes,
really exciting because again, like I was, I'm a bit of a wildling. I don't have a lineage of people that I've been studying under. And so I've been having these experiences and finding them challenging to talk about because they sound a
mhm,
little out there, and then when I
mhm,
when I become brave enough, or in this last year, have become brave enough to really share what's actually happening for me. There are just so many. There's scores and scores of other people, mostly femme-bodied, who seem to be having very similar remembrances as mine, and that
mhm,
just that makes me feel more confident in what is coming through from the field to me, and it makes me feel, you know, not alone. And I feel I'm getting this image of like, oh, it's almost like a Sailor Moon, like, with the power kind of radiating out and expanding. I'm getting like some sort of like funny little animation, like a character from a video game or a piece of animation would suddenly power up.
mhm,
Like that's the visual that comes to me. So I'm being expanded by this connection and our conversations today, as much as, we hope to bring that expansion to those who are listening.
mhm, 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 mhm. Such an honor. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. Thank you for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So look, I have a personal commitment to, it's going to sound how it sounds, but to only working with people in that type of context, right? Like if we're not growing, it's really not something I want to work on. Uh, but that's just because I'm a nut for transformation. Like that's what I'm here to do, is grow. So I'm always seeking those connections. And again, when your publishing company reached out, I send me a one sheet. I take one look at you like, yes, yes, you know what's up. Let's do this. And I
Yeah.
second your experience. And as you were sharing, so what's wild is the box that we're about to unpack. Okay. So I've been sitting with for years about what the second coming of Christ would look like for years, and I had it
Mm.
pretty clear, right? Like, so there was one, and then there's going to be many. There's going to be many, and then in between that time span of allowing that and getting it, like, oh no, that's actually not. No, there actually is going to be. And there's just going to be a lot of us. I really got now my own pathway because there are these well-known, well-tread paths. I don't know. I got to the Magdalene by a back door. I'm not gonna lie. I got the black rose. I don't know. Everybody else got a red one, but mine is black. And if you know me, you know it's fine. But anyway, I'm like, wait a minute. So we all now know the Magdalene was the Christ. So here we are in this conversation, and what's there for me is those of us who share this conversation like are literally on the front lines of the second coming of the Christ, because the Christ is the Magdalene energy reborn, but now instead of there being one, there's many. So there's many of us carrying these Magdalene codes. There's many of
Yeah.
us bring like really with this cosmic covenant to bring back this temple. Why? Because what is the fastest way to get people reconnected to pleasure as their compass?
Yeah. Through the self. Through the knowing of the I, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the sacredness of knowing that the I also, I want to say, like, has no meaning, but it's not quite what
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, but I think you know
yeah,
where I'm coming from, like
yeah.
recognizing the fragment or the fractal of the I
Mm-hmm.
as being,
Mm-hmm.
as being a fractal of source.
Yes. Yeah, the good old wave from the ocean, distinct from the ocean, yet when it returns, it's the ocean still.
Yeah,
You
it's a
know,
paradox.
exactly. Another wave arises. It's distinct from the first wave, but it's still the same ocean. No, so it's the
Yeah,
end and
if you don't mind, this is a perfect opportunity to talk about the 6 books, the first two
yes,
of which,
please do.
the first one came out this year, the second one will come out in February. But it's a 6-book codex that I'm calling the Heroes Codex. I'm sure some people
Mm,
have heard of the Heroes Gamos journey, but most
yeah.
people mistake the Heroes Gamos journey as, sacred union. And they mistake that to mean like heteronormative monogamous lifetime relationship between a man and a woman. And that is just, it couldn't be a more watered down
Yes,
and
limiting. Yeah.
binary version of what it means to have sacred union, because the sacred union
Mm,
journey first starts with the self, sacred union with the self, and with
yeah.
the inner, what we're still calling masculine and feminine energies, which are just energetic currents within us. But the harmonization, and for me, a complete transcendence of the
Mm,
masculine and feminine energetics
yeah.
within us. I call the transcending of that, because I definitely have, I'm in the place in my journey where I can confidently say that there's no compartmentalization between my inner masculine
Mm,
and inner feminine anymore. And that
mm-hmm,
state, it's like if you took ingredients for a soup and then you cooked
mm,
them down and then you pureed them so that the
mm.
ingredients no longer are identifiable as separate.
Yes,
That's
yes.
the visual that comes to me, and I call that state the divine primal. That is like
Mm,
sort of the first big goal of this sacred union journey with self, is to establish and embody a state I'm calling the divine primal. And so
mm,
the first 2 books, Forbidden Alchemy, which came out this year, is all about the taboo. So how to
mm,
transmute the taboo into erotic medicine. The second book,
mm,
which is coming out in February, is called Flesh and Flame Pleasure as the portal to divine mastery. So a broader introduction of pleasure as the lens through which we will ascend. And then the next four take the sacred union with self, the sacred union with other, split up into two books, one being a romantic partnership and one being every other kind of connection, other connection. And then the last being a sacred union with all. So sacred union with self, sacred union with other, and sacred union with all. And so that is this is like a life opus, that I downloaded this year, that it's super clear that these and those last four are going to be set up because of my background in video games and comic books. Those last four are going to be set up like a video game tutorial, structurally. They're going to come across that way. So, because I have this, my framework is very unique from that background, especially in video games. And I have a slogan that I feel really strongly about that says, "You are the god of the game. Your body is the console, and your pleasures are the cheat codes." Because if we are always following our aliveness, what brings us pleasures or our desires, it will never steer us wrong. We will continue to expand our consciousness. We will call in our dharma and our highest timelines. And the body, the body as the console, it's an oracle. And part of the pleasure literacy pillar in the pleasure renaissance movement is about not just learning pleasure literacy in the context that you and I have shared it, like this is what it's for, but like learning the body, the pleasure literacy of your own console. And like your body will tell you yes or no. Your body will tell you what direction to go in. It's not always the one that's the easiest, but it will always point you in the one that's the most efficient to you getting to that state of divinity that you're looking for. And again, pleasure is the way the divine speaks through the body. Such juicy brilliant conversation.
So brilliant. Yeah. Oh my God. Thank you so much. Tell us where we can find you. You just did the Austin Tantra Festival. How was that? And where else can we find you?
Yes, I did do the Austin Tantra Festival, and that went really great. It was really great to be really fully embodying this role as erotic mystic and spiritual innovator. Where people can find me, I certainly have a website, SharonMarieScott.com, and a Substack that I do. I write articles every week. I have both a free subscription and paid subscription there. Sharon Marie Scott. And then my platform in general on other social media accounts, you will usually find me under Life Turned On. So I have an 18 and older YouTube account, Life Turned On. Instagram is Sharon Life Turned On. And then again, Substack and TikTok, Life Turned On. I have a free Facebook group as well, Life Turned On. So, and again, that's all about desire and devotion and spiritual mastery. Life Turned On is about living a life that feels turned on every day. And how do we do that? We follow our aliveness. We open our perceptual apertures so that we're taking in every moment through more than one layering of sensation. And we're picking the label, right? We can take in sensation and call it pain, or we can take in sensation and call it pleasure. That's a choice. So that's the train. That's like and that's part of the temple training, I suppose, too, declaring something as pleasurable.
Okay. So we could go on for years. We probably will. So, but I want to come back to declaring pleasure. So I think what I want to do is leave our audience where they are, because I think we gave them a lot to just kind of sit with today. They get to unpack a lot and go, wow, a lot got said. And then let's come back. Let's do this again, and let's dive into declaring, because the power that's available in our word, especially through declaration, and as you point to, and I'm always saying, it's energy and motion. It's whatever you call it, and if you don't call it anything negative, guess what? It's gonna rock your world. It's gonna be amazing and feel great all the time, just by what you're calling it. So, yeah, absolutely. I'd love to have you back, and let's declare pleasure, but all the other stuff too, right?
Yep. Let's do it, because all of those, all that other stuff can be contextualized as pleasure. It's just a matter of choice. So yeah, we can dig into that.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you. It's just great to be with you. It's great to share this conversation with you. I love the opportunity to chop it up with you, as I say, but also just let people listen in to all the flow, right? The flow of
Yeah.
remembering together. Like
Mm.
nothing before, that in itself is something that's just
Yeah.
sacred that we get to enjoy.
Yeah. Very
Mm-hmm.
powerful and special uh reunion happening right here.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Well, we're going to end it here, everybody. Thank you for joining Sharon and myself. Sharon said she could come back, so we're going to keep going because it's so good. It's so, so, so good. If you haven't, tell a friend and tell a friend to tell a friend. Like, y'all should be here like yesterday already listening because what else is there for you to be doing but listening to conversations that actually matter like this one? Thank you so much. I love you. I honor
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
I love you. I love you all. Until the next episode, trust your path, trust your process, and trust your purpose. Peace.